Hi, my name is Michael Trout, and I want to do a talk on saving the planet. I have a very simple solution. But you have to understand the problem that we're facing, and the problem is that the current business model is flawed. There's a systemic error in it, and that error is that it's built on something known as the exponential function. And this exponential function is ultimately driving investments, and it's driving the collapse of our planet. Because a finite planet cannot live in an exponential function environment. So if you want to take a moment and listen to David Suzuki talk about this problem, now you have to understand, and I've got to say a couple of words before you watch this video by David, is that the example he uses is a good one, but it's flawed in the fact that most people are going to think of overpopulation and having babies. David is not talking about overpopulation. What he's talking about is actually the exponential growth in our use of resources, right? The exponential growth of the pollution of our oceans and our environment, the exponential growth of pesticides, right? All of these things are something in startups we call the law of market diffusion, the law of customer adoption, right? Both of these are built on the exponential function. If you look at how Facebook or Wikipedia or all these different things startups have grown, they've all grown on the exponential function. So it's really important for you to understand that even though the analogy he uses is bacteria growth, don't think of it as bacteria, but think of it as using resources and polluting our environment in an exponential manner, right? So here's the link. You can click on it, right, and watch it. And then I'll tell you. Well, welcome back, or if you're continuing without watching it, great, So what is the solution? Well, the solution is really simple. It's called the FOUNDUP. A FOUNDUP is any idea that will help the planet. It's launched, it's validated, funded, and owned by the people for the people. And ultimately, what drives the FOUNDUP is an exponential model that I created, which basically goes like this. FOUNDUPs are mandated, and stakeholders of FOUNDUPs are mandated, to reinvest 80% of net profits launching a FOUNDUP back into more FOUNDUPs. So what happens is that one FOUNDUP becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, 32, 64, 128, 128, 260, I don't know, 264, 5, or anyway, exponential growth, right? 512, 1028, 2056, and so on, right? So that's an exponential growth. That's the same exponential growth function that is destroying our planet. But what's different is that these ideas have to be beneficial to the planet. And they happen on playfoundups.com, right? Or Play FOUNDUPS app and foundups.com. Now, understand, we are FOUNDUP ourselves, and neither of those platforms currently exist. So what I'm doing is using Patheon, which has some similarities to what I envisioned 4 years ago for FOUNDUPS, but I just haven't had the capital. I haven't had the investors in order to build it. So I'm using their platform. So if you go to foundups.com, it's going to redirect to my page, right? And as an incentive for folks, what I'm doing is this, is I am gifting equity in the form of warrants to anyone that participates if they want it, right? That's, if they want it, they're a stakeholder. If they don't want it, they're a patron. Now, I understand that this is a violation of the SEC regs. I'm willing to take the responsibility of that. understand that I'm the one that's going to take the heat, not you. Now, I see some actually opportunities here because I believe, number one, if the SEC does come after me, right, I have to pay a fine. It's very unlikely I'm going to go to jail, right? But the upside is the opportunity for exposure. If they do go after me, think of the exposure that FOUNDUPS would get in the media, and it really won't change anything in regards to what we're doing. It's going to bring attention to it, which is a good thing. So, you know, farmer in Japan fined by SEC for trying to save the world or whatever. So join me in launching FOUNDUPS by simply going to FOUNDUPS.com, selecting Patron, and either coming in at a $2 per month, $5 per month, or $7 per month stake. And if you want to be a stakeholder, then ultimately I'm going to provide you with a contract in the form of a letter stating basically if we are sold or if we're bought, that your shares, you know, you'll be issued shares at a par value, which is the cost of the share at a penny. And ultimately, for every contribution you make, so if you're doing $2 per month, you're getting 200 shares at a cap of 10,000 shares. So no one, you know, can get more than 10,000 shares per person. That's the limitation. And if you get 10,000 shares, the other thing is if there is what's known as dilution, it's capped at 10,000 shares. So you could have, you know, fewer shares, and then the dilution, those shares are going to go up. But if you have 10,000 shares, then it gets capped at that. Otherwise, if I use the equation with Google with, you know, multiple caps, and then the funds get crazy. But we may end up doing it anyway. I don't know yet. It hasn't been finalized, and I need to basically get an attorney to sit down with me and write it. But you know, but whatever I do will be fair and reasonable. For example, I did the calculation that if Google would have launched as a FOUNDUP in 1996, and you own just $1 in Google, that dollar would have been worth $1.6 million because dilution happened 30 times, right? So that's 3,000 shares at $550 a share. That's $1.6 million. So ideally, 80% of that would have to be reinvested back on our platform and launching other ideas. The remainder you get to keep. So that's at $100. Now imagine you have $1,000. You'd be looking at a, you know, potentially $1 billion, and that isn't realistic. So that's why there's a cap of 10,000, just to keep things in perspective. My name is Michael Trout. I appreciate you watching, and